Welcome back to How to Craft Fair. This is the November 2023 edition of the Q&A series where I have channel members submit questions to me and I do my best to give an answer on them in order to help them. Again, these questions are coming from channel members, not just subscribers, so if you want to submit a question, check out the join button below to learn how you can become a channel member and all the perks that come with it. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first question is coming from Eliana, and the question is, how do you become a craft fair event organizer? So, good question. We haven't really talked about the organizing perspective too much on this series yet. We've covered some things here and there, but I'm going to be releasing a large anthology series that's pretty similar to what I did with How to Become a Craft Fair Vendor series. I'm planning on 20 episodes weekly, so it should take, approximately 5 months to put the entire thing out. But in the meantime, to answer this question and to keep it pretty condensed and short, there's a lot to it. There really is a lot to it. The 20 episodes are going to be jam-packed with tips. So to summarize, basically, you need to take it and break it down step by step. The first thing that you want to do is basically take a look at your contacts. So assess the contacts that you have in the craft fair world, whether it's fellow organizers or vendors or just enthusiasts. Okay, so people that like to shop from craft fairs, it's going to be important to keep track of these contacts as well. So you want to kind of get these in order, because if you announce something and you say, hey, I'm going to organize a craft fair, you want an audience. I mean, you want some kind of an audience to drum up some interest right off the bat. So it gives you like a nice head start to begin with. Now, of course, in order to announce a craft fair, you need to pick a venue, you need to pick a date, you need to pick like the size and the theme and type of show. So is it going to be indoors? Is it going to be outdoors? Is there going to be a particular theme? So like, am I going to base it around a holiday, or is it just going to be kind of like a free for all? So there's a lot of these like basic decisions that you're going to have to make right off the bat before you even announce the event. So again, it's hard to answer this in a really condensed manner, but the thing with being an organizer is that it comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. You have dozens, if not some of these large events have hundreds of vendors that are relying off of you in order to do what it takes to throw a successful show. So, I mean, that comes with marketing. There's a lot of marketing elements that you're going to have to kind of start digging into and learn about. So stay tuned on the channel for the How to Organize a Craft Fair series. I promise I'm going to put everything that I can into it, and I'm sure that we're going to have more stuff that comes along the way, but I hope that it's helpful for you. Okay, now the next question from Eliana it's a good one. It's something that we haven't really talked about before, and it's, how do I prevent people from taking advantage of me while offering free samples as a vendor? So I'm going to break this answer down into two parts, okay? I'm going to cover kind of like the in-person aspect and then also like the online aspect. So for in-person events, I would establish some clear-cut boundaries with the shoppers, basically setting expectations for like the amount of samples that they can receive. The way that you can do this is just have some signage out where you have your samples. Okay, so like, for example, if you have lotions, things like that, put a sign out there by all the bottles that says, just one test per person, or, per scent, or whatever you want to do. But basically, a way that you can kind of cut down on your profit loss essentially by offering free samples is to set those expectations. Okay, now for online orders, some vendors will actually ship out samples or small samples to people, and I would strongly advise you to not do this. It's basically just inviting yourself for a total free for all, with people just ordering samples left and right. And, maybe one person does it and then they start spreading the word around, and all of a sudden you're just literally sending out tons and tons of free samples. So for anything that's online, I would just encourage you to not even have this as an option because it's really just opening the door for being taken advantage of. Okay, so the next three questions are submitted by channel member Shayna. So the first is it best to focus on vending at November and December events? Because at that time of year, people are in the mindset to buy items versus just window shopping during other months and seasons. So, what I'll say is that by far the best months of the year to participate in a craft fair are October and November. So, your two fall months, October, November. And then also for the spring shows, April and May can be strong as well. So, April, May, and then October and November. You're a lot more likely to experience your strongest sales in October and November as there's a greater awareness for shopping small, shopping local, and shopping for the holidays during that time of year. So the two best spring months again are April and May because if you start a little bit earlier than this, it's too close to coming off of the holiday season. So like the craft fair season hasn't really ramped up into full swing yet. And then you really don't want to go into the summer months like June, July, August because you're really at risk of participating in shows that can be tricky with attendance sometimes. The one exception I'll say to this is you'll have outdoor summer markets, and these can be massive, massive events where there's literally sometimes tens of thousands of people at these outdoor summer markets. So kind of keep that in mind, like the ebb and the flow of the craft fair season. There's really, really quiet months in the first 3 months, and then you kind of ramp up into the spring rush. You slow down again in the summer, with the exception of those big outdoor summer markets. And then in the fall, you get a really, really big push for the holiday shopping, shopping local and supporting those small businesses. Okay, so Shayna's second question is essentially a follow-up to the first question, so we're going to flow right into it. During the other months of the year, should a maker focus on establishing an online store and work to sell items that way rather than attending events where it can be very hit or miss? So kind of referencing that off season we just talked about, all right? Now, it really all depends on the seller and how aggressive you want to go with it. Do you want to focus on sales year round? Okay, so having an online store would definitely send you into that pattern where you really don't have any kind of a break or an off season to not only recover mentally and physically, but to also provide them with an opportunity to redesign their booth, build up inventory for the upcoming year, and really just to have some off time in general away from their business to help avoid those feelings of burnout that can set in. So an online store, it's going to keep you grinding and in the trenches all year long. And it comes down to a personal preference. Also, you should consider, is your crafting business a full-time occupation or is it more of a side hustle? This can kind of help you determine whether or not you should go the online store route or just stick to those in-person events. A lot of vendors, they'll sometimes bite off more than they can chew. And it's not that they're like drowning and they can't handle it and that it's impossible, but when you have no breaks in that event calendar and when you're just basically pushing to the absolute limit and flip-flopping between in-person events and then your online store and going back and forth with no breaks whatsoever, it can make you susceptible to burnout. And that's really the last thing that you want, okay? Because at the end of the day, a lot of vendors, basically all vendors, are starting this as a labor of love, right? It's a hobby that we love and we enjoy doing it, and it shouldn't feel like a burden. And you don't want to get to the point where you've gone past that tipping point where it is burdensome and it is like suffocating to you. So just keep all that in mind. Like I said, this is going to be a vendor to vendor situation. Some vendors, it is basically their occupation and they can treat it as such and handle like that grind every day. Other people, they want it as a hobby and they want to be able to kind of weave in and out of, I'm in it and then I have my break time. So that's all up to you. Think about what your path feels like and just imagine yourself going down both those roads and which one is more inviting to you. Okay, and finally, another topic we have not covered on the channel. So really great questions this month, you guys. It's all the topics are pretty much new to the channel or newer, and it's great to talk about it and get it out in the open. So last question from Shayna is, what are your thoughts on MakerPlace? And that's the Etsy competitor platform launched recently by Michaels. So I had to jot down a bunch of notes for myself, so I'm going to be looking down quite a bit, especially during this segment if I haven't already. And we're going to talk about some pros and cons of MakerPlace. Okay, so there definitely are some pluses and then there are some drawbacks, and we're going to dive into it. So let's talk about being a seller on MakerPlace. The first is that you are going to have exposure to a wide customer base. As a seller on MakerPlace, you have the opportunity to showcase your products to a large customer base. Michaels is a well-known retail brand, and many loyal customers visit their stores regularly already and their online platform. So it has the potential of increasing your visibility if you're associated with that platform. So like I said, Michaels is, at least in the United States, you guys, Michaels is probably the strongest craft supply retailer in the country. And they have a really good reputation, Michaels. A lot of positive feedback. My own personal experience has always been great with Michaels. I've actually associated with them as an organizer too, to give all of the vendors at my events like discounts and discount codes and stuff like that. So they've always been really good. They've been good to me personally and the people I know. But like I said, an important thing to keep in mind is that people are already coming to them and they're familiar with them. So being on their platform could have some advantages. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is it's an established platform. So like I said, by joining MakerPlace, you gain access to an established online platform that already attracts customers interested in crafting, DIY, and making. The reason why I want to kind of mention this again is that it can save you time, effort, and resources as opposed to building your own website or your own online store. Okay, so some people go with the .com website and they're kind of starting from scratch, and you need to basically attract people in who have those interests. So the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about the Michaels platform again is because you already have a head start and you're on a platform where people are interested in crafts and DIY and things like that. So again, it is worth noting a second time that, you would be jumping onto a platform that already has an audience in a demographic that has interest in those hobbies. Okay, so another positive thing about MakerPlace is that they can provide you with marketing and promotional support to highlight your products. It can increase your visibility on the platform and potentially reach more customers. So it can lead to increased sales and brand recognition for yourself. So there are some built-in tools on the platform that can help you reach a further audience with some marketing and promoting and things like that. I know that Etsy pretty much has the same thing, but it is worth noting that MakerPlace does have this capability as well. Okay, so now the next positive thing I want to talk about is the networking opportunities that you'll have being a seller on MakerPlace. So there are various groups and forums that you can join as a seller on MakerPlace. And not only can this help you with troubleshooting and maybe just some tips and tricks, but it also can provide you with just general networking opportunities where maybe you can collaborate with other creators and do some cross promotions and maybe some stitches on social media where you can do create content together with people that you can connect with. So it starts to kind of open the door to meeting other creators and networking. So that's definitely a highlight of MakerPlace. Again, as opposed to just kind of starting a .com website or starting your own thing and really starting from scratch. And you kind of have to build all those networking opportunities up over time. Okay, so now let's talk about the flip side. Let's talk about some negative aspects about being a seller on MakerPlace. And the first one that I want to talk about is that you are likely to face a lot of competition. That's one of the things that a lot of Etsy sellers were kind of getting frustrated with, is a lot of people were calling it basically a flooded platform, and they were seeking some competition because they didn't want Etsy to turn into a monopoly where it's like the one catch-all place for selling your crafts online. So with MakerPlace coming in, yes, that's initially great, but as it grows, there is going to be more and more competition on the platform for people who might make similar things as you. Okay, so you're not like going to get away from that on any of these platforms. Whether another one pops up someday, or if we're just talking about Etsy versus MakerPlace, there's always going to be competition. Okay, so you just have to basically go into it being okay with that fact. And as long as you kind of go into it with that attitude, you're going to be okay. Okay, now another thing to consider is that MakerPlace is not invincible to seller fees and commissions that can eat into your profits. So just like Etsy, the platform is going to take a slice of the pie, and you need to kind of weigh the pros and the cons and, how much is worth giving up on all of these different various platforms in order to decide if it's going to be worth it for you. Another thing I should point out is that there's limited control for you as a seller. So MakerPlace, again, just like any other online selling platform, is prone to evolution and change as time goes on. And that's with their policies, the design, and other aspects of the platform. So your branding and your product presentation may need to adapt to meet certain guidelines set by Michaels. So that could change as time goes on, and you basically just have to be willing to change with it. Now, say for example, if you start to put a lot of dependency on the platform and you're relying more and more on MakerPlace as your sales channel, you are becoming more dependent on their traffic and their customer base. So let's just say, for example, that MakerPlace undergoes some kind of like drastic changes or experiences some kind of decline in popularity. It could impact your sales. So basically what I'm talking about here is you can't really put all your eggs in one basket. If you were to join Etsy, or if you're to join MakerPlace or whatever the online platform is, you got to basically have yourself diversified, for lack of a better term. And you can't put all of your, you can't invest everything into one platform, because if it does take a sideways turn, you're going to be really, really impacted by that. So again, just kind of be ready for that and have other options out there for yourself. So I hope that this was a decent look at MakerPlace. I know it was very, very generalized. Okay, so in order to look at the details, I would recommend actually hopping on Etsy and hopping on to MakerPlace. And if there's any other site out there and platform out there for you, take a look at them. Look at their policies, look at their seller fees, look at other shops that are already existing on the platform, for some inspiration to see basically how far you can take your shop with your design and customization. And just start to kind of weigh the pros and cons of each one, because for each vendor, the needs are probably going to be a little bit different, from person to person. So again, I kept it kind of general, and especially because I don't know when you, the viewer, are watching this video. So I could release this today in, November of 2023, and say 6 months later in May of 2024, the platform is completely different with different policies and different changes that have happened. So just, kind of take these with a grain of salt and from the surface and make the best decision for you. This was the November 2023 Q&A video for channel members. I hope that you, the viewer, got really good value out of it. If you did, please be sure to like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. It helps with the algorithm, helps the channel reach more people and get the word out about the channel. To check out the other videos in the Q&A series, click on the playlist above, and thank you all so much for watching.